Welcome to Mindful Escape, the podcast that helps you find your purpose and your passion. My name is Leighton Jewett and I am your host, and today we have Richard, the broker of brokers, on the show. There's no such thing as too much swagger are his famous words, and he's going to talk us through his journey and how he finds material objects, his outlet and link to the purpose of life. This is a really fascinating episode. I think you're going to absolutely love it. So make sure you stay tuned and we'll jump straight in.
Maybe in a different way from yourself, but there's some crossover synergies of mindsets. My one is more hedonistic, materialistic. That's the aim. It's not about a spiritual discovery. I'm not worried about that. And, you know, it's funny that when you are having a bad day, you've got a bad back, you've got a headache, you're not feeling good at all. When some good news comes, you've found love, or someone has given you a compliment, or you've made some money from a deal, that backache tends to disappear straight away. And you're thinking, oh, God, what the hell was that? I've been suffering from this bloody back for the last 2 weeks, and now it's like disappeared. Why? You realize because ultimately everything is controlled by your mindset and how you feel. And if you're feeling good, it doesn't really matter about the rest of the world, because you're living in your own world as well.
The broker of brokers, welcome to Mindful Escape. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much. Great to see you. I mean, I've known Leighton now for a few years, back in the days when he was in the agency business. And what sort of made me look at the guy twice was the fact that the first time I look at someone, I see something, and then I look again and I see the same Mickey Mouse thing. With Leighton, I look at him first as this agent, and then secondly as this, what I can only describe as humanist, really, in the business, in the property world, where there's very few people who are really caring about what's good for you. And I realized at that moment that this guy, whatever he puts his mind to, whatever he does, is going to be an essential game changer. And since then, you've done very well, and had some amazing experiences living in another country, which is what I've told everyone to do, and grown as a human.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to. What do you do? And I was reading a little bit of your bio in terms of your career, if you like. Do you want to give us a brief summary of that?
I think that when you endowed with certain skill sets that are slightly different, like I wrote the advert PG Tips. My name's Bon Brook Bon. Try some of my PG Tips at 13. And felt a complete outsider. I wasn't into the cliquey groups, Jewish background, and quite frankly, I didn't like the mindset there particularly, because I wanted to gain a bigger picture of the world. And then I went to have some experiences. School disappointed me, let me down, because I worked hard to achieve targets that weren't recognized. And then I eventually left actually early to get onto the business ladder. But I needed the experience in Israel, in kibbutz, to really gain my foothold on leadership and dealing with people from all over the world, and having lots of sexual relationships with lovely young ladies, which the man needs, and to be able to feel who I was as a person, and then come back and get the opportunity by, I wouldn't say luck, it was about someone that I knew said to me, "You're a great sales guy, go into the stock market, because that's the cash register, that's where you'll make the big bucks." And I made huge bucks, and it was a sort of a game changer from, reasonable money to very big money, although my background, my family was very successful. So I'd seen success early. And I always had swagger. I always had fancy clothes, different shoes, different coats, jackets, Versace, Armani, Rolexes. because those were the prizes, those were the celebrations of life, of saying, why are you dressing down? You've got to look good. And then after that, into the property world. 5-6 years ago, I stepped up my profile to this broker of brokers persona. And my role in life now is to empower other people and also not only do my own property deals, but help other people to do that. And at the same time, be very much involved in art because I'm a poet, performance poet. So there's a lot of strands, a lot of levels to this persona and this brand.
You were working for a company as a stockbroker, or were you working self-employed?
You can't be self-employed in that business. You have to work for a company. It's not a self-employed thing. Maybe today a little bit more. There's a possibility where you could be a day trader working for yourself. Yes, you could do that, where you're self-employed, you study, you do a sort of a course in trading, and then you decide to put your money into that, but you'll probably need another job for funds. In those days, and even now, you work for a regulated firm, pass the exams, and then you deal with clients, build up your client base. In my case, it was private clients. And so that's what that involved, and just enjoying the background as well.
Yeah, it's lovely. So you're working in the stock market, you're earning good amounts of money. What then made you want to go out and do your own thing rather? Why didn't you just carry on doing what you were doing?
Well, I did do my own thing, and that was a problem because my thing was I found a sort of the secret sauce was to work for the clients, not for the company that I was working for, not for myself. In other words, I understood that certain stocks were speculative and certain stocks, if I managed to make a name for myself, I would get the best money-making opportunities available for my clients. So I strived to be the best so that I could make them the most money, and that's what I did. But I understood that I was not a political guy. And being number one in the whole company, I did it in about 6 companies, but in the first one, out of maybe 1,000 guys, they said, okay, well, you'll be a manager. And I said, I don't want to be a manager because they can't do the job better than me, and I have to have the responsibility. So pay me more than everyone else in the company, and I'll be like an intrapreneur, which obviously has now come into vogue, that word. And so I had my own deal. And I just really, I suppose, my whole career had that mindset of doing my own thing within a company. And I think every entrepreneur in the world, most of them, would be very comfortable to work for someone and be employed as long as they were being remunerated correctly and had shares in the company. And that's what struck me as being very interesting about a company that you work for, where they would give you a degree of that sort of family owning responsibility. And that's what I think is important in business, not just to be used and abused, but also to get something out of it.
So if you were to give some advice to someone now who's in an employed position, but they haven't got the opportunity to get shares in the business, or they're not seeing that reward, what would your advice be to someone like that?
They need to look at themselves very closely, look at the day-to-day and look at the long-term and look at the goals. And they need to speak to the broker of brokers once they've got the mindset right, because then it's a case of building their assets and cash flows on the side. So they've got a certain amount of income coming in every single month, and they can stay in that job if they're enjoying it. But at some point, they're able to then get out and have total, well, not total, but let's say a larger degree of freedom. And that's what everyone needs, freedom from ownership. That's what it's about. Unfortunately, in relationships, in business, in life, with families as well, believe it or not, there's this tendency to be owned. And I'm sure you found that as well, going to another country, free from the shackles of questions being asked all the time. Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? How much money have you got? Why are you in that crazy place? What the hell? Have you become a hippie? Have you lost your mind? all of the things that will come into the conventional wisdom that runs the world. But like you, I'm not conventional, not at all. I don't like it. I hate it. That's not where the great things were ever achieved.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Right or wrong?
No, absolutely right. And for me, it was all about freedom and flexibility. And a lot of people that I speak to, they feel like they're very stuck in what they're doing. They don't see a way out. So,
That's because they're afraid. That's because they're afraid. They are afraid to, if they say what they want to say, they should sit down with their boss and they should say, look, boss, can I have a word with you? What do you mean? I'm busy at the moment. Okay, forget it. And then make their moves. The boss says, what's it about? Which normally they say because they're suspicious of everything. What's it about? Send me an email. Da, da, da. I'd like to speak to you for 15 minutes. Okay. Finally, they get the yes. What's the story for me here? What's the truth? What's going on? What, you know, do I have a future here if I'm successful? What's going on? Otherwise, people are just living in a dream cuckoo land. They don't know what's going on. And they are at the behest of someone else.
yeah,
Same thing in a relationship with your partner. You know, you've got to say to them, what do you want? Are you happy with everything? Let me tell you what I want, what I'm happy with, what I'm not happy with. And have those meetings, even if they're married or with children. You know, they've got to be aware of the situation because women tend to have this view of questioning all the time about the position that they're in because security is their number one characteristic that they're looking for in a man.
yeah.
I want to know where they stand.
I think a lot of people being afraid are fearful of having those conversations because they don't want to hear the answer
Correct.
because that will force change.
Correct. They know the answer already before they ask the question. They just want to try and, they're afraid of, as you say, change. People are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
To say, right, the fact that I've lived in so many places, quite a few countries, been in many relationships, been in many jobs, all of these things would scare the hell out of most people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, but you don't do it because you're doing it based on the fact that you're a troublemaker. You're doing it on the basis that you're growing all the time, you're evolving. And if people evolve with you, beautiful. If they don't, still love you.
Yeah, there's something, I guess, very comfortable about the lives that a lot of people end up in. And I was guilty of that as well, of becoming very comfortable and uncomfortable about the uncertainty that lied ahead. What would you tell someone who was fearful of that uncertainty, and how can they get themselves out of that rut and have a better mindset?
If a bit of wind hits me, we're very high up here, and that's the end of the game. That's life. Uh, I saw something on Instagram from Australia. It was quite interesting. There's this kid there. He said, what if I give you 1 million now or 10 million now? Will you take it? I said, of course, I'll take it. He says, all right, I'll give you the 1 million or 10 million now, but you can't wake up tomorrow morning. Will you take it? He said, no. He said, so waking up tomorrow morning is worth more than 1 million or 10 million then.
Yeah.
It's so simple and obvious, but being alive is all that it matters in the world. All the politics, all the religion, all the relationships. You know, you you wake up one morning and your partner says, "Right, I'm leaving. I'm packing my bags." You go to work. They say, "Sorry, someone else has got your job." You know, all of these things, and then you look at yourself and you say, "Shit, where's the money? Where's the love?" Um, and you know, but you're still alive and you can do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something very powerful about knowing that you have this life and not to waste it and actually do
Exactly.
something for, if it's for no one else, at least for yourself. Make the most of it.
Well, this is now the biggest thing that you've said to me in this conversation. You've just come up with a massive thing called tikkun olam in the Hebrew terms, or mudita in the Buddhist Sanskrit terms, joy for other people's success. Or, in other words, as I say, or my brand says, the broker of brokers, the more powerful you are in wealth and greatness, the more you give to the world. In other words, the best version of Leighton is the best version for me,
Mm-hmm.
because it means that you've got reach, you've got opportunities. Let's say that all of a sudden you say, right, my services are going to go premium very soon. I'm going to charge huge money to certain people. Other people, I'll do it for free, because there's that element of what I'm doing I need to give to society, and not everyone can afford everything. That's right. But at the same time, for the people that can afford it, you want to maximize it. You'll give them special information and treatment at the company levels, at personal levels, to increase their well-being and financial gains. But at the same time, once you have the ability to fly around the world, visit more places, meet more people, touch more people, you're more useful.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. And the issue is, in the world, there's so much jealousy on the other side. Haters on the platforms are getting talked about all the time, but haters are right. There's nothing wrong with haters. You see, if you and I are saying this is the right way of living, who are we to say? It's our judgment. Doesn't mean it's right. It might be wrong for them. So haters are being formed by people thinking, who gives them the right to say that? That's what it's about, I think, in terms of that. I'm not saying become a hater. I'm just saying if you understand them a little bit better, you'll realize that everyone's got a story, everyone's got something to say, and that's where I don't know why we got there, but that's the purpose of conversation, to allow yourself to go into other dimensions. That's about the writing process. I'm a poet. When I write, I sit down. I don't know always what I'm going to write about. Most of the time, I don't, and it comes. And that's what we need in the workplace. That's what we need in the relationship place. That's what we need. That's what we're having in this conversation. This is having a free flow element, but we know that we want to talk about empowerment, but it's a crossover of many things.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with complications. Life is trying to simplify everything. Here's the formula. Here's the answer. Here's the shortcut. People say to me about property, oh, is it the right time? Oh, interest rates. Oh, I'm not sure about this. Oh, is that area good? Just do it, man. Just do it. I've been doing this since I was 18. If you buy anything in West Hampstead, in 10 years' time, it's going to be worth more. Even if there's a crash, it goes down, then back up again. If you do anywhere in the whole country, pretty much, unless all of a sudden you've got like a Detroit in America where it goes to the trash because of the car industry. But even that's been picking up. America, Vegas is very hot, but that's another subject.
Yeah.
Very important one, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think coming back to what we were saying about empowering ourselves
Yeah,
and others
yeah,
and
yeah,
being of use.
yeah.
Sometimes people say to me, I don't want to focus on myself because it's selfish. And my response is, well, you need to be the best version of yourself so that you can support, help, provide for others around you. What's your take on that?
Be selfish, be greedy, be more selfish. Even my mother said to me before she died, be more selfish. Being selfless, because when you look at a word, you've got to look at the opposite. So selfless has its elements, but you can be wasting time dealing with too many people's issues, which will come back on you. The problem is, if you're involved in the healing process or dealing with people that are struggling, a lot of the negative energy that they're giving themselves is coming to you. So somehow you've got to clear yourself. You've got to clear them and yourself. And the mindset is the first thing that that requires. And that means that you have to show by example.
Mhm.
My example is swagger. I'm always wearing stylish clothes. I'm always wearing my shades. I'm always coming with what people might presume is some degree of arrogance, but it's not. And even if it is, so what? It's to empower them to think bigger. When you think bigger, it's not about being selfish or selfless. It's about thinking in the right way. So thinking big means it's not one thing or another. It's just looking at the big picture. The big picture is good for everyone. It's good for the world. And that's the problem, because when I speak to people and I say, why don't you go on Instagram and say something? Why don't you do it? Not to jump on the bandwagon, but just because you've got something to say. So I took a bus once, and a couple of times the guy recognized me, and he said to me, you're great. Every time I see you, I feel great. The way you talk, the way you dress, you always have, empowering just naturally. I said, yeah. I said, because I'm a leader, so are you. He said, leader? I'm a bus driver. I said, have you got any kids? He said, yes. I said, do they do what they want, or do you tell them what to do? He said, well, I direct them. I said, okay. Start to understand you're not a small potato like you think you are. And this is the problem. People think they're small potatoes. They go on and they see this famous person and say, oh, there. Don't get me wrong. That famous person is important and special because they've really gone for their goals in their life. But the other person that's looking at them has that potential. And in fact, in a way, is at the same level. It's just they're not recognized. But in their mind, I mean, for me, I'm a rock star. I'm a god. I'm a superstar. That's how when I look at the mirror, I say, yes, I love it. That's my creation. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And, people, when I started wearing the bowler hat, as you've seen, and the shades and all the stuff, they're like, they don't do that now. They're like, because you have to fit the outfit with it's all about how you see yourself, not how they see you.
Yeah.
So that's your job and my job, to make people feel good about themselves. And I think most people don't. And that's from childhood, from the school. They got bullied, they got kicked around, they had some issues, and they never overcame them. They never overcame them.
Yeah. I guess it's about not thinking small. Just keep thinking big and knowing that you are capable of more.
Well, if my advice to you would be to sort of set up schools where you are, which you're already doing, come back to London, set up a sort of a branded philosophy of what you're doing, and then do one in Europe, one in America, and put very responsible people in charge of your brand that have your mindset. Start to derive income, use the sort of similar systems, have one rule book of, how you all believe things are done. And then you've got numbers, traction, and, very quickly that can build up because it's a system.
Mm-hmm.
You're the head of it. And that can be quite profitable as well.
One of the videos I posted the other day was about chasing your dreams. And if you've got something
Right.
in mind, just go for it. Don't hold back. And someone replied saying, that's fine for you in your 30s, but I'm too old to chase my dreams.
Mm.
What's your view on that?
Well, sorry to disappoint the people that think I'm in my 20s or 30s, a little bit older than that. But, I actually see myself at the prime of my life, because I remember meeting European people. In fact, I remember being a kid, as you were, as everyone was, but as you and I were kids, we'd look at guys that were in their 30s and think, poor sod, he's old. You remember
Yeah.
that when you were, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that 100%. And then again, the Mediterranean man, the man that's born around the Mediterranean, you talk to him at 40, you say, how old are you? Oh, I'm an old man, I'm finished, I'm retiring. All they talk about is retirement. They're 40.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And then you meet an American, and I met an American. He was 75, shirt sleeves undone, cool cat, enjoying life, younger girlfriend, everything was cool, been married, had kids, had a big life, traveling, you know, felt unbelievable. And it was like, wow, this is fantastic time for me because I don't make the stupid mistakes that I made when I was a teenager or in my 20s. Now I've got the experience. So, you know, people with the experience should say to themselves, thank God for that. Now I'll use the experience. And quite frankly, Kiss are still rolling in their 70s. All right, Gene Simmons had to sit down because the armor that he was wearing was a bit too heavy, and it's their last tour, so to speak. Mick Jagger, come on, man, you can go forever. Well, die with your boots on. For me, I'm going to die with my boots on. Poetry forever, this forever, I don't care, what the situation is. I'm dying with my boots on. In fact, death is the thing that I think destroys people because it is a case that when you are a very young child, you don't know, you think you're immortal, you're not going to die. You can see how you play, fall off trees, everything, doesn't matter. When you realize that you can get ill or worse, die, you get a bit afraid. It's like you drive very fast as a kid in your cars, and then as you get older, you're careful. Should be the other way around, but never mind. So the element of death does come into the people's subconscious mind without them knowing, I think. And they think, okay, I'm closer to that death. But if you are closer to death, which in truth you are, you should be trying even harder to maximize your time. So if you're young, it's natural to be free and wild anyway. That's what that youth is and should be allowed to be. And that's why today they're really screwed up because they can go on the television and the YouTube and watch old films of cool guys smoking and drinking and womanizing and free and swearing even and calling other people names without, in a bad way. And now it's like, oh, don't do this, don't say that, don't do this, don't do that, don't shut the fuck up. Sorry, I don't know if we can say it on here. You have to be having the freedom to be yourself. And all these rules and regulations are screwing people up. So somehow you've got to sort of say, yes, yes, and then do what the hell you want.
Yeah, and I like that as you get older, you're more knowledgeable, so you've got to just go harder and faster.
Well, time's running out. So as again, I've heard it said, QTR, quality time remaining. I think Paul Stanley said that, again, one of my iconic guys. I can't remember, I come from the rock era of that. So that's the sort of thing that I relate to rock stars. That's what I said, I feel a rock star myself. And quality time remaining. So the answer to that is that. But again, why are they asking those questions? It's down to two things. And the two things that are required for any human being is self-trust and self-confidence. If they've got those two, the world is theirs.
Yeah. Before we finish up, if you were to talk to your younger self, let's say whenever, 15, 20 years ago, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, in terms of relationships, I think there's a young lady, Yana, that I was engaged to marry. I didn't, and she died, and sorry about that, Yana. So I would have married her. It was unfortunate. That's a specific situation that I'm pleased to talk about. And, but we had great memories. So I would certainly have changed things there. I think you've got to also, or I would have, you're asking me personally, okay, I would have some other conversations with some people. I think certain people in my life that had were holding me back or annoying me, or I would have sort of spoken to them in a different manner and literally said to them, what's wrong with you that you behave this way? Again, if we're talking specifically 15, 20, 24, or any period. Are we talking any period? Any period. Well, I think if we were going back, let's say, to the stock market times, that's a good time to go to that. I think if we were there, and I've talked about this recently, rather than knocking everyone out and destroying them and being competitive and, I'm the best, which I was, I would have said to them, right, let's join forces. Let's cooperate with each other. Let's collaborate. Let's start to buy properties together. Let's have businesses together. Let's have restaurants together. We're all making great money here, not just me. I was making the most, but they were also making good money. Let's use that money to pump into maybe some shares, but more property assets, into business assets, and start to formulate and then continue that with other people to the point where we had massive, massive enterprises. And I think that's the way forward. It's very difficult to do that unless you can show people a way of making money, and then they say, you know what, I can see that it works and we're coming in, and then it builds from there, the snowball effect. And I think that's the only point, because successfully, yes, I've done well, but I could do a lot better, and that drives me to keep wanting to do better all the time in the future. But I think that's certainly something that I pass to people. Look at the people. I said this as well recently. I said, the people above your level, learn from. The people on your level, cooperate with. The people below your level, let them cooperate with you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I was doing some writing yesterday, and one of the things that kept coming up about achieving what has been described as like a massive transformative purpose is all around connections and collaborations. And
Right.
it ties in great to what you just said, because you can go fast on your own, but to go far, I think, as you say, you just need the support of others around you and working together and, yeah, getting where you want to get to.
Well, what I need personally, and what I'm looking for, if anyone's watching this, is all the skills that I don't have, which is in the internet marketing, those sort of elements, to get big numbers. I need a publicist. I need, for my books, I need an agent. And I think that's the same with anyone of note that has been successful. They might be great presenters. They might be great salespeople, but they need other skills in that pot to take them where they want to go. And I think that's the same for you as well. You will need certain people involved that are maybe like-minded to some extent or completely different view, but they have this great skill set where you don't have, and you need that to break into certain segments of your target audience. So, by the way, have you worked out what your target audience is, Leighton?
So, yeah, at the moment, I'm targeting people who are stuck in their day-to-day lives. So,
Right.
originally, it was the younger people. I was thinking it was going to be like your 25 to 35-year-olds. But as I'm diving deeper into this, I'm starting to come across people all sorts of ages who are still stuck in what they're doing and looking for a way to get out and live a life that they love, they're passionate about, and makes them want to be alive and not feel like they're just trapped.
Well, I had that as well. I had an experience where people from school that I haven't really kept in touch with, but one of them came to me and said, I've lost my mojo. He said, I see that you are, enjoying life. You look great and young and powerful, and everything is great. And I'm sort of stuck here in my marriage with my children, and my life is boring and the same friends from before, and everything's, and it's a difficult conversation to say to him. But I did actually say, look, you've got these lovely family members, that are looking at you. Don't look at them in a negative way. But on the same time, if you want to sort of tell them that you don't have to leave them, but you have to leave that life to some extent by being still very much involved with them and doing everything. But if you have another passion that you want to do, you're not owned by your children or your family or anyone. You have to do it. And I didn't want to start divorces or breakups, and I wouldn't go into that conversation. I'd do it the other way, where they say, look, as much as you might have things, your partner may also have things that she wants to do. It's not always a one-way conversation. You never know. But rather than destroy families, which I don't believe in, keep yourself together and give more love, and just say, and appreciate what you've got, because it could have been a case that he was taking for granted all the lovely things that he's achieved.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess another thing that comes into that is being grateful for what you have.
Yeah, gratitude is important for sure. You've got to, but it's not pure gratitude, because if it's pure gratitude, then you don't make any moves. You can't wait for people to do things. I mean, I smash through doors until I'm a guy that sees what I want. Once I see it, whatever it is, I will do what it takes to get it. But you don't always see every single day what you want. It comes from time to time. But when you see those things, you must go for them.
That's the other thing about as you get older. So one of the things I was definitely guilty of when I was younger is coming up with these great ideas and thinking about things, but never taking action. And now that I feel like I'm getting older, I'm thinking, okay, time is getting less. So I haven't got time to just think and sit on it. And obviously it's nice to reflect, but I just want to go. And when I see something, I'm like, okay, let's go, action.
Well, you're doing it. You've been very, from what I can see, you've been very proactive, and you've been making some amazing moves and developments. And your inner energy is very clear. And that's the most important thing, is the energies that people show. It's like people that you meet that you don't know why you like them or don't like them. It's related to the energies that they put off. You can't know who they are. You might be quite similar in some ways, but that life is not a conundrum that you can get 100% right. You are going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. You're going to lose. You're going to get hurt. You're going to have all the issues. But if you somehow enjoy everything and say to yourself, I need to have problems and trouble, because if I don't, it means I'm not doing anything. I'm just playing safe. They use the comfort zone, but I think that's been overused, that term, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you're, because if you stay in that playing it safe zone, you'll eventually become unhappy. And you've got to take small steps now of maybe slight discomfort to live the life that you want, rather than taking the easy route now and then regretting it in 5, 10 years' time.
Ask me one final question as a sort of a curveball.
Okay. On your life's journey, have you found, so I know you had a Jewish upbringing,
Yeah.
and you touched on Buddhism as well. Have you found that you've
Yeah.
become more spiritual as you've got older and as you progress through this journey?
Um, I think I haven't become more spiritual, but I've thought about seeing materialism as a different format. I can see the beauty in aesthetics, which have a spiritual resonance.
Do you want to expand
Can
on
you
that?
understand that? Yeah. So let's say that you have an amazing apartment or a materialistic thing, great holiday, really luxurious or amazing meal, something that's going to ultimately cost money. And at the same time, I have something which is also giving you a great experience, like waking up very early in the morning, walking around and just feeling part of nature. That also gives you a great feeling, especially if it starts raining and then it stops and you're alone and you feel, my God. And if you're in Canary Wharf and you look at the buildings, or you're in Dubai, or in your Thailand in the most beautiful nature, no doubt. So you feel all these things. So they don't always have to be money driven, but in a sense, a lot of them are, because where your mind is more settled and you're not worrying about money, you're freer to be creative, I think. Although where you've got issues, that also forces you to be thinking in another way. What I would say is that, again, with the ideology or the idea of being spiritual comes some sort of strange elements that don't relate to the practical side of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the practical side of life is time and what we do with it and how we grow. So, for example, you are looking at a situation and you're looking in one way directly, and then you're looking from another way. So it could be that you and I look back at this and think, right, well, we are involved in this conversation, but we're also the audience of this conversation. So you go on a few dimensions. So let's say that you're involved in a process, but you look at it from another level, looking down on yourself, and then you see it for all its worth, all its beauty, all its clarity. Because I'm not convinced that there's a past, present, and a future. I think there's just a present, which includes the past and also includes next week. And then there's the future, which is not really the future. It's just a big picture of your goals and achieving them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people start to think in those terms, they can then sort of take out elements and then bring in new elements and make everything work for their purpose. And their purpose should be to, as we said in the beginning of the conversation, try and leave the world in a better place than we found it, which is definitely what I see you doing.
Yeah, I love
you
that.
are looking to make the world a better place.
That's the plan.
Well, I think you're doing a great job.
Cool. Thank you. And thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Likewise. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. And there we have it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode. A little bit different to the usual topics that we talk about, but I think Richard gave some really good points on how you can live your life. And if you're feeling stuck, then just take action. It's time to be honest with yourself, be truthful with your thoughts and your voice, and live a life that you truly desire. If you enjoyed this episode and found it useful, make sure you share it with a friend who will also find value, and we'll see you again same time next week.